Welcome to Lit Night Fuel, where the shadows come alive and the stories send shivers down your spine. Today, we're diving into the chilling world of creepy and dark Reddit stories, perfect for when you're studying, relaxing, or just craving an unsettling tale to set the mood. These stories aren't just eerie, they're haunting and guaranteed to keep you on edge. Before we get started, don't forget to like this video and hit that subscribe button. Our goal is to reach 1,000 subscribers, and with your support, we're closer to unlocking the next chapter of this journey. Now, turn down the lights, get comfortable, and let's dive into some bone-chilling Reddit tales. Ready? Let's begin. A stranger watches me every night. For the past 3 years, I have been haunted by a figure that appears every single night without fail. It doesn't matter where I am or what I'm doing. He always finds me. It started subtly. I work as a barista, and one evening while closing up, I noticed someone lingering outside. A man in a tattered raincoat, his silhouette illuminated by the dim streetlights. His face was shadowed, but I could feel his eyes on me. I shrugged it off, as some drunk passing by, but it happened again the next night, and the night after, always at the same time, 11:47 p.m. A month later, I moved to a different apartment across town. The first night there, I went to my balcony to enjoy the view, only to spot the same figure standing under a lamppost across the street. I froze. My heart pounded as I stared, but he didn't move. He didn't even flinch when a car sped past him, its headlights briefly illuminating his pale, featureless face. I've tried convincing myself it was a coincidence, but the pit in my stomach told me otherwise. I began seeing him everywhere, outside the movie theater, at the grocery store, even once at a friend's wedding. He never approached, never spoke. He simply stood at a distance, watching. The worst part? No one else seems to notice him. I've pointed him out to friends, even shown pictures I've taken on my phone, but every time, they just look at me like I've lost my mind. "There's no one there," they'd say. Last week, I decided to confront him. I waited outside my building, gripping a flashlight and a kitchen knife, trembling with a mix of fear and anger. When 11:47 p.m. arrived, he appeared, standing under the lamppost as always. I stormed across the street, shouting at him, demanding to know who he was and why he was following me. As I got closer, I realized his face wasn't just pale. It was blank. No eyes, no nose, no mouth. Just smooth, taut skin stretched over a skull-like frame. I stumbled back in terror, and in the blink of an eye, he was gone, vanished into thin air. My friends insist I was imagining it, that I'm overworked or stressed. But I know what I saw. The encounters have escalated since then. Now he doesn't just watch me from a distance. A few nights ago, I woke up at 11:47 p.m. to find him standing at the foot of my bed. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. His featureless face loomed closer, and I could feel an unnatural cold radiating from him. Then, just as suddenly, he disappeared. 2 weeks ago, I tried leaving town altogether. I booked a cabin in a remote forest, far from any city. It was peaceful during the day, but as night fell, I felt the familiar dread creeping in. At exactly 11:47 p.m., I heard faint knocking on the cabin door. My heart sank. I knew it was him. Gathering what courage I had left, I peeked through the peephole. There he stood, featureless and motionless. I didn't dare open the door. Instead, I spent the entire night clutching a fire poker, jumping at every sound until the first light of dawn broke through the trees. Last night, I decided to record him. I set up my phone on a tripod, pointing it toward my bedroom window. I sat in the dark, waiting. When the clock struck 11:47 p.m., the scratching began. This time, it was louder, more insistent. My hands trembled as I watched the shadow appear on the other side of the glass. He pressed his blank face against it, leaving smudges where his features should have been. I wanted to scream, but I bit down on my fist to stay silent. After what felt like an eternity, he stepped back and disappeared into the night. When I checked the footage this morning, all I saw was static. Tonight, I've barricaded myself in my bedroom. The door is locked, furniture piled against it, every light in the house turned on. My phone is fully charged, and I've set alarms for every hour to keep myself awake. But as I'm writing this, I can hear something outside my window. It's 11:46 p.m. The scratching sound is getting louder. I'm terrified to look, but I know he's there, watching, waiting. The clock just struck 11:47. I wish I had never eaten at this diner. I was driving down a desolate road in the middle of nowhere, coming home from a 2-day business trip. I was starving. It was 1 p.m., and I'd been on the road since 6 a.m. I figured I wouldn't find anything to eat for the next 50 miles or so, but to my shock, something appeared in front of me. It seemed like a hallucination when first seen, but as I was walking closer, I found that it was an old-fashioned diner, and the sign hanging outside read, "Haven's Diner," with very faint neon glow in a dense fog that was swallowing the endless road. Inside, it was quiet, but for the very faint hum of a jukebox playing some tune I almost recognized. The smell of burnt coffee and grease hit my nostrils, but I sensed something else, a metallic tang that I couldn't place. The place was deserted, save for a waitress stationed by the counter, with a smile a little too wide and eyes nailed to me like she had been waiting for me. I slipped into a booth by the window, and just as I hadn't yet bothered to request the menu, a waitress came by, set down the steaming plate before me, and walked off again. Staring at that food in revulsion made my stomach roll up. It was Mom's meatloaf recipe, overcooked edges, an exact shade of gravy, to the point she hadn't prepared that dish for over 10 years, since her death. "How did you know?" I began to ask, but the words caught in my throat. The waitress merely cocked her head, still smiling, and headed back to the counter without a word. I should have left right then. I was too hungry, too tired, and something about the smell of that meatloaf drew me, filling me with a bittersweet nostalgia I couldn't fight. I picked up the fork and took a bite. It was perfect, just like I remembered it from when I was a kid. But as I chewed, a strange sensation crept over me, like I was being watched by someone I couldn't see. The hair on the back of my neck stood up, and I glanced around the diner. It was still empty, except for the waitress, who now stood completely still, her back turned to me. That's when I noticed the clock above the counter. It was stuck at 3:33, the second hand twitching but never moving forward. My appetite vanished, replaced by a cold knot of unease in my stomach. I stood up, leaving the half-eaten plate on the table, and headed for the door. "Leaving so soon?" a voice said behind me. It wasn't the waitress, it was a man's voice, low and raspy, like he'd smoked a pack a day for years. I turned around, but no one was there. The booth where I had been sitting was empty, the plate of meatloaf gone. I ran for the door, my heart pounding in my chest, and flung it open. Outside, the fog was thicker than before, pressing against my skin like a damp shroud. My car was gone. In its place stood another sign, smaller than the one out front. It read, "You're always welcome at Haven's Diner. See you soon." I started walking, hoping to find the road, another car, anything. But no matter how far I went, I ended up back in front of that damn diner. And each time I returned, the same plate of meatloaf was waiting for me, steaming hot and just the way Mom used to make it. I don't know how long I've been here. Days? Weeks? The clock inside still says 3:33. The waitress still smiles that too wide smile, and the jukebox keeps playing that almost familiar song on a loop. I can't leave, and I'm afraid to eat again. But sooner or later, I know I'll give in. The smell of that meatloaf is stronger now, and my hunger is growing. If you ever pass a Haven's Diner along the side of the road, keep going. No matter how hungry you are, no matter how tired, just go. When I was a child, my best friends were monsters who lived in the woods behind my house. I was 7 years old and didn't have any real friends. I didn't need any. I spent my days playing with the monsters who called the forest their home. They were my world. I don't recall exactly how I met them. Their names are lost to time as well. But I do remember how they looked. 3 towering, furry creatures with features pulled from nightmares. One had the snout of a crocodile with a pig's nose at the end. Another resembled a hulking gorilla, but with enormous bull horns curling from its head. The third looked like a lion with oversized fangs that stretched far beyond its jaw. The day I first met them, they wanted to play hide and seek. I was it, and I had never laughed so hard. It was the beginning of endless games. We played tag, I Spy, and other games of their own invention. I'd tell my parents about my friends, and they seemed fine with it, just so long as I was home before sunset. The monsters lived in a small, one-room cabin deep in the woods. It was simple, with a table and 4 chairs in the center. That's where we'd eat snacks they prepared for me. There were 2 closets in the cabin, one on either side of the room, but I never gave them much thought. The cabin felt like a magical hideaway. One day, my parents told me we were moving. I cried and begged to stay, not wanting to leave my monster friends behind. They promised me I'd make new friends at our new home, but it didn't feel like much comfort. I went to the woods to tell the monsters goodbye. They were devastated, pleading with me to stay. I explained that I had no choice. It wasn't up to me. After the move, I slowly forgot about my forest friends. I made new friends, real friends, and the monsters faded into the fog of childhood memories. My parents often teased me about the vivid imagination I had back then, but they never mentioned the monsters. It all felt like a dream. 15 years later, curiosity pulled me back to my old neighborhood. My childhood home was abandoned now, its windows boarded up and its yard overgrown. I ventured to the backyard and found the deer trail that led to the woods. It felt surreal as I followed the path, memories stirring with each step. I eventually found the cabin, just as I remembered it, though time had not been kind. The door was hanging loose, barely attached to its hinges. I pushed it open and stepped inside. Everything was as it had been. The table, the 4 chairs, all covered in dust and cobwebs. It was like stepping into a preserved snapshot of my childhood. I was drawn to the first closet. Inside, I found 3 hooks holding monster masks and matching furry suits. The costumes were tattered and moth-eaten, but unmistakably those of my childhood friends. The sight of them brought the memories crashing back. The games, the laughter, all of it had been with people in costumes. I turned to the second closet and opened it. What I found inside turned my stomach and made my knees buckle. Skeletons, child-sized skeletons. They were piled against the wall, their hollow eye sockets staring into nothingness. Each was about the size I had been when I was 7. I stumbled backward, bile rising in my throat. My monster friends had been monsters after all, just not the kind I'd imagined. Our town is infested by unwanted visitors. All they do is watch us. I have learned to live with them by now. It is not much different from how things were before they came. I still have my routine. I still wake up at 6 a.m., and I most certainly still drag my feet to work every morning. All of us do. There is no alternative. When they first arrived, we at least had the decency to fear them. Quiet chatter at the water cooler and careful whispers in the hallway carried our unease. There was a shared anxiety, a collective tension, because we knew nothing. What are they? What do they want? Why are they not doing anything? Our little town quickly developed a system. At first, we communicated their whereabouts through hand-drawn maps and word of mouth. Soon, Facebook groups sprang up dedicated to this very purpose. And now, thanks to some local software engineers, we even have an app documenting the locations and behaviors of unwanted visitors. There's an app for that. Regarding these creatures, our knowledge is lacking, to say the least, but we've learned a few things. 1. They come in the night. From where? We don't know. There have been sightings of them crawling out of drain wells, jumping from rooftops, and somehow squeezing themselves out of pipes. However, I can't confirm any of this firsthand. I've never seen them move. 2. Once they find a spot, they seem to return to it every night. It's almost as if they enjoy things. Of course, this makes it easier to document their locations, but it has drawbacks too. For example, our next-door neighbors have a window in their bedroom that faces the complex courtyard. One of them took a liking to that very spot. Imagine trying to get ready for bed every night while one of those things stares at you with its small, black, beady eyes. Needless to say, our neighbors haven't opened their blinds in over a year. 3. The only thing they do is observe. If you encounter one, it won't move. It won't touch, threaten, or harm you. But it will watch you. As for why, we still have no idea. 4. They seem to be local to our town. I haven't heard of sightings anywhere else, and the only channel that covers them is our local news. The police department is aware of them, but they're the only authority that even acknowledges their existence. We've tried contacting every government agency imaginable, the FBI, CIA, Homeland Security, but no one has done anything apart from silencing those of us who try to go public. We're on our own. That's the extent of what we know. As you might imagine, many theories have emerged. Most of them are biblical in nature or resemble fairy tales, punishment for our sins, the rapture, that sort of thing. The most interesting theory I've heard suggests that they were once normal humans, sent by a foreign power to intimidate and destabilize us. But if you've ever seen one, you'd know immediately that they are not human. I still remember my first encounter, the first encounter anyone ever had. It was a foggy Thursday night, just past midnight. I'd stayed late at the office, finishing up a report that wasn't due for another week, but anything to avoid the silence of my apartment. The streets were deserted as I walked home, the dim glow of streetlights failing to cut through the mist. That's when I saw it. At first I thought it was a person, a shadow, slouched against the wall of the laundromat. But as I got closer, my steps faltered. It was taller than a person should be, impossibly thin, like someone had stretched it. Its limbs were too long, dangling in strange angles as it hunched forward. It didn't seem to have a face, not really, just smooth, pale skin that shimmered slightly in the light. And then there were the eyes, two small black beads, unmoving, unblinking, fixed directly on me. I froze, clutching my bag so tightly my knuckles turned white. It didn't move. It didn't make a sound. It just watched. I tried to tell myself it wasn't real, that I was imagining things, that I was overtired. But the weight of its gaze was undeniable, like a heavy, oppressive presence pressing down on me. My heart thundered in my chest. I took a step backward, then another, its head tilted, ever so slightly, as if studying me. I couldn't stand it anymore. I turned and bolted, sprinting the rest of the way home without looking back. I slammed my door shut, locked it, and collapsed against it, gasping for breath. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch with all the lights on, waiting for morning. I kept telling myself I wouldn't go outside again, not alone, not at night. But life has a way of making you adapt. Bills pile up, groceries run low, and work doesn't wait for fear. So I learned to live with them. We all did. Now I see them often. Sometimes on my morning walk to work, standing silently in alleyways or perched on rooftops. Sometimes in the park, leaning against a tree as couples stroll by, oblivious. I've even seen one sitting on a swing in the children's playground, its long legs folded awkwardly, the chains creaking softly under its weight. But it's not just their presence that unnerves me. It's the feeling that they know something we don't, that their endless watching isn't idle curiosity, but something deliberate, something calculated. Sometimes I wonder if we'll ever know what they want, or if we're better off not knowing at all. Thank you so much for watching this video. Since my channel is new, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you prefer shorter videos with just 1 or 2 stories, or longer ones with several back-to-back, maybe even hour-long compilations? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the eerie vibes, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow and keeps the horror alive. Thanks again for joining me, and until next time, stay curious, stay cautious, and stay in the shadows. See you soon.